At 6:47 a.m. on August 15, 1944, Staff Sergeant Frank Kowalski crouched in a hedgerow 380 yards from a French crossroads, gripping 3 pull cords that disappeared into the brush ahead of him. The cords were connected to a 12-foot oak beam he'd dragged from a destroyed farmhouse 3 days earlier. Mounted to that beam were 3 German Panzerfaust anti-tank charges aimed at a single predetermined point. His platoon called it the barn beam launcher. His officers called it unauthorized. His engineers called it insane. Kowalski called it the only weapon that could kill a German armored car before it killed more of his men. An Sd.Kfz 234 armored car appeared from the tree line 400 yards northwest. 8 wheels, 50mm cannon, top speed 85 kilometers per hour. The vehicle rolled toward the crossroads at 30 kilometers per hour. Slow, deliberate. The German crew was scanning for targets through vision ports, looking for American positions to destroy. They'd used this route 4 times in the past 2 weeks. Always successful, always lethal. The vehicle commander stood in his hatch with binoculars raised. The gunner traversed the 50mm cannon toward known American defensive positions. The armored car stopped at the crossroads. Standard procedure. Establish a stable firing platform. Acquire targets. Fire 8 to 12 high-explosive rounds. Withdraw before American bazooka teams could react. The pattern never changed. Kowalski watched through a gap in the hedgerow. The armored car sat 12 feet from the point where his barn beam was aimed. Close enough. He pulled all 3 cords simultaneously. 3 Panzerfausts fired with a hollow whump that echoed across the French countryside. Flight time, 1.8 seconds. The first charge hit the armored car's front right wheel assembly. Exploded. The second charge hit the hull side, penetrated the armor, detonated inside the crew compartment. The third charge sailed high, missed completely. But 2 hits were sufficient. Shaped charge explosions ripped through the interior. The commander's hatch blew off, flew 30 feet. A secondary explosion followed. Onboard ammunition cooked off. The armored car burned. Black smoke poured from every opening. The entire engagement lasted 4 seconds from the moment Kowalski pulled the cords to complete destruction of the vehicle. 0 German survivors, 0 American casualties. What Kowalski's platoon didn't know yet was that this crude weapon built from farm debris and captured German ordnance would change how American infantry fought armored vehicles across France for the next 6 weeks. Between June and September 1944, the U.S. Third Army lost 847 infantry soldiers to German armored vehicles in close-quarters combat. Not tanks, armored cars, Sd.Kfz 234 8-wheeled reconnaissance vehicles that could appear from nowhere, shred an American position in seconds, and vanish before anyone could fight back. The vehicle carried a crew of 4: driver, commander, gunner, radio operator. It was armed with a 50mm cannon and 2 7.92mm machine guns. The armor was 20mm thick at the front, 15mm on the sides. Enough to stop small arms fire, not enough to stop a direct hit from a bazooka or anti-tank gun. But stopping it required hitting it first. The Sd.Kfz 234 was fast, 85 kilometers per hour on roads, 40 kilometers per hour cross-country. It could appear from a tree line, engage American positions, and disappear back into cover in under 1 minute. American doctrine said, call for air support or artillery when armored vehicles appeared. Request a fire mission. Wait for P-47 Thunderbolts to arrive or 105mm howitzers to zero in. But German armored cars didn't wait. They struck fast. Fired 8 to 12 high-explosive rounds. Killed whoever they could. then withdrew into the French countryside before American support could arrive. P-47 scramble time from forward airfields averaged 8 to 12 minutes. Artillery fire mission processing time averaged 6 to 9 minutes. German armored car engagement time averaged 43 seconds. The math didn't work. By the time American support arrived, the Germans were gone, left behind dead soldiers and burning positions. American infantry carried bazookas, M1A1 rocket launchers. Effective range, 300 yards against armored vehicles. The problem wasn't the weapon. The problem was the time required to use it. A bazooka team needed 15 seconds to acquire a target, aim, and fire at 400 yards. Longer if the target was moving. The German armored cars never gave them 15 seconds. Standard German tactic: appear from concealment. Stop in a stable firing position for 30 to 40 seconds to engage targets accurately. Then withdraw before American crews could react. That stop was when they were vulnerable. But 15 seconds to aim and fire a bazooka meant the Germans would see the bazooka team, would target them first, would kill them before they could shoot. The Third Army had lost 23 bazooka teams in July alone, trying to engage German armored cars. 23 teams, 46 men, all killed before they could fire a single rocket. The pattern was consistent and brutal. American bazooka team sees armored car. Team loads rocket, starts to aim. German gunner sees movement, fires first. Americans die. The Germans had been fighting since 1939. 5 years of combat experience. They knew what a bazooka team looked like, knew how long it took them to aim, knew exactly when to fire. On August 12, 1944, Staff Sergeant Frank Kowalski watched 3 of his men die to a German armored car near Mortain, France. It happened at 8:47 hours during a routine morning patrol. Kowalski's squad, 2nd Platoon, Baker Company, 2nd Battalion, 28th Infantry Division, had dug in along a hedgerow overlooking a road junction, 12 men. Standard defensive position. Good fields of fire, solid cover. They'd been there 2 days without contact. The Sd.Kfz 234 appeared from a tree line 400 yards to the northwest. Kowalski saw it first through the hedgerow gap, called out the contact. His bazooka team, Private James Chen and Corporal David Morrison, grabbed their launcher. Chen carried the tube. Morrison carried the rockets. They'd trained together for 8 months, knew the drill. Load, aim, fire. 15 seconds if they were fast. The German armored car stopped 390 yards out. Perfect firing position. The commander stood in his hatch, scanned American positions with binoculars, found them. The 50mm cannon traversed left, aimed directly at Kowalski's hedgerow. The German gunner fired before Chen and Morrison could even load their rocket. The first high-explosive round hit Chen and Morrison directly. Both men died instantly, bodies thrown backward by the blast. The bazooka tube flew 15 feet, landed in pieces. The German gunner fired 7 more rounds in 31 seconds. Methodical, professional, walking fire across the American position. The third round hit PFC Robert Hayes, the squad radio man, 22 years old. Cleveland. Shrapnel caught him in the chest and throat. He was dead before the medic reached him. The other 9 men in Kowalski's squad stayed low, couldn't return fire. The armored car's armor was too thick for rifle rounds. They had no anti-tank weapons left. Could only press themselves into the dirt and pray the next round didn't find them. At 09:28, 41 seconds after the German armored car appeared, it withdrew back into the tree line, disappeared. Kowalski's bazooka team finally got organized. A different team, different men, had loaded a rocket and aimed it where the armored car had been. Total time from first contact to ready to fire, 57 seconds. No target remaining. The Germans were gone. 3 Americans dead. 0 German casualties. Engagement time, 43 seconds. Kowalski knelt next to Chen's body, then Morrison's, then Hayes's. All 3 killed in less than a minute. Killed because American weapons couldn't respond fast enough. Killed because doctrine said, wait for support that never arrived in time. Killed because the Germans understood timing better than Americans did. That evening, while his platoon dug new defensive positions 200 yards south, Kowalski walked to a destroyed French farmhouse behind the American lines. The building had been hit by artillery 3 weeks earlier. Walls collapsed. Roof gone. But the barn structure remained partially intact. Kowalski found what he needed in the rubble. An oak beam, 12 feet long, 8 inches square, probably 300 pounds. It had supported the barn's roof before German shells brought everything down. Kowalski grabbed one end of the beam, started dragging. The oak was heavy, dense. His shoulders burned after 50 yards. He kept pulling. Took him 40 minutes to drag the beam 200 meters back to American positions. His hands blistered, his back ached. He didn't stop. Lieutenant James Whitmore found him as Kowalski dropped the beam next to his foxhole. Whitmore was 24 years old. West Point. 6 months in combat. Good officer. Listened to his sergeants. He looked at Kowalski, looked at the barn beam, asked the obvious question. What the hell are you doing, Sergeant? Kowalski wiped sweat from his face. Building an anti-armor weapon, sir. Whitmore stared at the beam. Out of that? Yes, sir. You've lost your mind. Possibly, sir. Whitmore walked away shaking his head. Thought Kowalski had cracked. Too much combat, too many dead friends. Men did strange things when they broke. Dragging barn beams around was harmless enough. But Kowalski hadn't broken. He was a construction foreman from Pittsburgh before the war. 34 years old. Worked demolition for 12 years, understood structural loads, understood blast physics, understood shaped charges and how to direct explosive force. His specialty had been controlled explosions in tight urban spaces, bringing down buildings without damaging adjacent structures. It required precision, required understanding angles, vectors, energy transfer, required knowing exactly where to place charges and how much force to use. Kowalski had been studying the German armored cars for 3 weeks. Kept a notebook, recorded times, locations, approach routes, firing positions. A pattern emerged. The Germans weren't random. They used terrain predictably, preferred crossroads, preferred intersections, anywhere with clear fields of fire and good withdrawal routes. They would appear from cover, stop for 30 to 40 seconds to fire, then withdraw the same way they came. That stop was the key. The Germans needed a stable platform for accurate cannon fire. A moving vehicle couldn't aim precisely, so they stopped. Became stationary targets for 30 to 40 seconds. But American bazookas needed 15 seconds to aim and fire. The Germans would see them, would shoot first. The timing didn't work, unless the weapon was already aimed. Kowalski studied the crossroads 380 yards north of his new position. German armored cars had appeared there 3 times in the past week. Always stopped in the same general area, 20-foot circle, predictable. That predictability was their weakness. If Kowalski could pre-aim a weapon at that spot, if he could have it ready to fire instantly when the armored car appeared, if he could make it crude enough that German reconnaissance wouldn't recognize it as a threat, then maybe he could kill them before they killed more Americans. He sat down next to the barn beam as the sun set over France, pulled out his bayonet, started sketching a design in the dirt. 3 Panzerfausts mounted to the beam at 15-degree intervals. Pull cords for remote firing. The whole assembly positioned in brush, camouflaged, aimed at the crossroads. The Germans would roll into the kill zone, stop to fire. Kowalski would pull the cords. The Panzerfausts would fire. The armored car would die. Simple, crude, insane. But Chen, Morrison, and Hayes were dead because conventional tactics didn't work. Maybe it was time to try something unconventional. Kowalski had been tracking German armored car behavior since July 23, 1944. 3 weeks of observations, times, locations, approach angles, firing positions, all recorded in a small notebook he kept in his jacket pocket. 26 separate sightings, 18 engagements, 11 American casualties. The data revealed patterns. German armored cars preferred intersections. Crossroads offered clear fields of fire in multiple directions, allowed quick target acquisition, provided multiple withdrawal routes if threatened. They approached from cover, tree lines mostly, rolled to predetermined firing positions, stopped for 30 to 40 seconds, fired, withdrew. The stop was critical. A 50mm cannon couldn't aim accurately from a moving platform. Physics required stability. The Germans understood this. Every engagement followed the same sequence. Kowalski's notebook showed exact stopping locations. At the crossroads, 380 yards north, German armored cars had stopped 3 times in 8 days. August 4th, August 9th, August 11th. Each time, the vehicle stopped within a 20-foot radius. Same general position, same tactical logic. The spot offered clear view of American positions while maintaining cover from the tree line behind. Perfect firing position, predictable firing position. American bazooka teams needed 15 seconds minimum to engage targets at 400 yards. Longer if the target was unexpected. The sequence was fixed. Spot target. Call out contact. Grab bazooka. Load rocket. Aim. Fire. Each step took time. 2 seconds to spot. 3 seconds to call out. 4 seconds to grab launcher. 3 seconds to load. 3 seconds to aim. 15 seconds total if everything went perfectly. Combat rarely went perfectly. German armored car crews had 5 years of combat experience. They knew what American bazooka teams looked like, knew the profile. 2 men, one carrying tube, one carrying rockets. Distinctive silhouette, easy to spot. German gunners watched for them. The moment a bazooka team appeared, the German gunner would shift fire. Target the threat. Kill them first. Standard counter-ambush doctrine. The math was simple and brutal. Germans needed 3 seconds to shift aim and fire. Americans needed 15 seconds to aim and fire. Germans won, always, every time, 23. Bazooka teams destroyed in July proved it. The timing gap was insurmountable using conventional tactics. Kowalski's solution eliminated the timing gap. Pre-aimed weapon. No aiming required during engagement, just a trigger pull when the target appeared in the predetermined kill zone. The weapon would sit waiting, camouflaged, indistinguishable from farm debris. Germans wouldn't recognize the threat, wouldn't see it as a weapon until too late. But before Kowalski built his barn beam launcher, other men had tried different solutions to the armored car problem. All of them failed. All of them died, proving that conventional approaches didn't work. Corporal Eddie Martinez, 1st Infantry Division, died on July 23, 1944, near St. Lo. 26 years old. El Paso, Texas. Martinez commanded a bazooka team. 3 combat months. 2 confirmed tank kills. Good soldier. Smart tactician. He'd studied the armored car problem. Understood that speed was critical. Decided to pre-position his bazooka team in a covered location overlooking a road junction. Load the rocket before the target appeared. Reduce reaction time to 3 seconds. Just aim and fire when the armored car showed up. The plan was sound. Martinez and his loader, Private First Class Thomas Riley, set up in a stone barn 50 yards from the junction. Loaded the rocket. Waited. The Sd.Kfz 234 appeared at 1400 hours. Rolled toward the junction. Martinez aimed through the barn window. Range, 200 yards. Perfect shot. He was 3 seconds from firing when the German gunner saw movement in the barn window. Saw the bazooka tube silhouette. Traversed the 50mm cannon. Fired. High explosive round punched through the barn wall. Killed Martinez and Riley instantly. The armored car withdrew. Engagement time, 38 seconds. 2 Americans dead. 0 German casualties. The problem wasn't Martinez's tactics. The problem was that bazooka tubes were visible. Recognizable. German gunners knew what they looked like. Knew to shoot them immediately. Sergeant William O'Brien tried a different approach. 4th Infantry Division, August 2nd, 1944. Near Mortain. O'Brien was 32 years old. Boston. Firefighter before the war. Understood tactics. Understood timing. He positioned his bazooka team in heavy brush 300 yards from a known German approach route. Complete concealment. No line of sight to the team until they fired. The Sd.Kfz 234 appeared at 0630 hours, but it stopped 450 yards out. Beyond effective bazooka range, the German crew was being cautious, scanning for threats before advancing. O'Brien had 2 choices: fire from current position and probably miss, or advance to better range and risk being spotted. He chose to advance, took his loader, Private Daniel Wu, and crawled forward through the brush. They made it 70 yards. Cut the range to 380, good firing position. O'Brien raised the bazooka, started to aim. The movement caught a German spotter's attention, just a rustle in the brush enough. The armored car's machine gun opened fire. 7.92mm rounds cut through the vegetation. Wu died immediately. 3 rounds through the chest. O'Brien took 1 round through the right shoulder. Survived. The armored car fired 6 high-explosive cannon rounds into the brush for good measure. Then withdrew. Engagement time, 51 seconds. 1 American dead. 1 wounded. 0 German casualties. The problem wasn't O'Brien's concealment. The problem was movement. Any movement during engagement drew fire. German crews were too experienced, too alert, too fast. Lieutenant David Chen, 9th Infantry Division, tried using artillery. August 7th, 1944. Chen called for a pre-registered fire mission on a crossroads where German armored cars frequently appeared. Requested the fire mission 8 minutes before the armored car was expected. Artillery battery confirmed. Plotted the target, loaded guns, waited for fire order. The Sd.Kfz 234 appeared at the crossroads at 0715 hours. Chen called for fire. The request went through battalion. Reached the Fire Direction Center. Calculations confirmed. Fire order issued. Total processing time, 8 minutes, 12 seconds. The German armored car fired 9 rounds into American positions, killed 4 men, wounded 6. Withdrew at 0757. 42 seconds after arriving. Artillery rounds landed at 0823. 6 minutes after the armored car left. 105mm shells hammered an empty crossroads, destroyed some trees, cratered the road, killed nobody. Chang's 4 men were dead. The Germans were gone. Artillery fire missions took too long. The gap between request and impact exceeded German engagement time by 6 minutes. The pattern was clear. American response time exceeded German engagement time. Bazookas took 15 seconds. Artillery took 8 minutes. Air support took 12 minutes. German armored cars needed 43 seconds. Americans couldn't win with standard tactics. Couldn't close the timing gap using conventional weapons and procedures. Kowalski understood this. Understood that beating the armored cars required eliminating response time entirely. The weapon had to be waiting, had to be aimed, had to fire instantly. No aiming, no requesting support, no movement that Germans could spot. Just pull trigger when target appeared. On the evening of August 12th, after watching Chen, Morrison, and Hayes die, Kowalski began construction. He worked alone after dark. The platoon thought he'd lost his mind. Grief did strange things to men. Let him drag his barn beam around. Let him carve on it with his bayonet. Let him work through his trauma. They'd seen it before. He'd be fine in a few days. Kowalski had 3 German Panzerfausts, taken from a destroyed German position 2 weeks earlier. The position had been overrun by American armor. Germans fled, left equipment behind. Kowalski collected the Panzerfausts because captured enemy ordnance was always useful. Might need them later. Now was later. The Panzerfaust was a single-shot disposable anti-tank weapon. 150mm shaped charge warhead, effective range 60 meters against armor. The weapon was designed for close-range ambush. German infantry would let enemy tanks pass, fire from behind at close range, penetrate weak rear armor. The Panzerfaust was devastatingly effective at 60 meters, worthless beyond 100 meters, accuracy degraded, penetration declined, not designed for long-range use. But Kowalski didn't need long-range penetration. The Sd.Kfz in 234 had 20 millimeters of frontal armor, 15 millimeters on the sides. A Panzerfaust could penetrate that at 300 yards if it hit. The shaped charge didn't care about range. It cared about impact. If the warhead hit the armored car, the armor would fail. Physics was physics. The problem was accuracy. A handheld Panzerfaust couldn't hit a specific target at 380 yards. Too much flight time, too much windage, too much variation. But a Panzerfaust mounted to a stable platform, pre-aimed at a specific point, could hit that point reliably, especially if you fired 3 of them simultaneously. Created a spread pattern. Increased hit probability. Kowalski started with the barn beam, 12 feet long, 8 inches by 8 inches square. Oak. Dense. Heavy. Stable. He used his entrenching tool to carve 3 mounting brackets into the beam, worked by moonlight. No fires allowed near the front line. German observers watched for light. Artillery followed light. The work was slow. Oak was hard. The entrenching tool wasn't designed for carpentry. Kowalski's hands blistered within 20 minutes. He wrapped them in strips torn from an undershirt. Kept working. Each bracket needed to be 6 inches long, 4 inches deep, carved into the top surface of the beam, precise enough to hold a Panzerfaust firmly, rough enough that he could finish in one night. His shoulders ached. His fingers cramped. The shovel blade slipped twice. Cut his left thumb on the second slip. Blood made the wood slippery. He wiped it on his jacket. Kept carving. The night air was humid. Mosquitoes swarmed. He ignored them, focused on the work. Each bracket was positioned at 15-degree intervals along the beam's length, 5 feet apart. When all 3 Panzerfausts were mounted, they'd create a 45-degree spread pattern at 380 yards, a 20-foot cone of fire. Even if his aim was slightly off, at least 1 charge should hit the target. Probably 2, maybe all 3 if he aimed perfectly. By 0200 hours, the brackets were complete. 3 carved slots, rough but functional. Kowalski tested them by pressing his fist into each slot. They held firm. The wood didn't crack. Good enough. He was exhausted. 4 hours of carving oak by moonlight. His hands were destroyed, blisters on blisters. The thumb cut still bled. But the hardest part was done. Tomorrow he'd mount the Panzerfausts, rig the firing mechanism, install the weapon. Tomorrow he'd find out if barn beams could kill armored cars. August 13th, morning. Kowalski mounted the Panzerfausts to the beam. He used wire salvaged from a destroyed Jeep, heavy gauge, flexible enough to wrap, strong enough to hold. Each Panzerfaust weighed 11 pounds. The mounting had to be solid, had to survive the launch shock when the charges fired. He positioned the first Panzerfaust in the left bracket, wrapped wire around the weapon's tube. 18 wraps. Tight. Tested it by shaking the beam hard. The Panzerfaust didn't shift. He repeated the process with the second and third charges, middle and right positions, each secured with 18 wraps of wire. The beam now weighed 340 pounds total. Too heavy for one man to carry. Next came the firing mechanisms. Panzerfausts used a simple trigger system. Press trigger. Internal spring released. Firing pin struck primer. Rocket motor ignited. The trigger required 4 pounds of pressure. Easy to activate, easy to rig for remote firing. Kowalski used brake cables salvaged from a burned-out 3/4-ton truck. Steel cable. Protective sheath. Each cable was 25 feet long. He attached one cable to each Panzerfaust trigger using wire loops. The loops acted as pull levers. Pull the cable. Loop pulled the trigger. Panzerfaust fired. Simple mechanical linkage, no electronics, no complexity, just cables and leverage. He routed all 3 cables back to a single point 25 feet behind the beam, the firing position. From there, he could pull all 3 cables simultaneously. Fire all 3 Panzerfausts at once. Triple the hit probability. Triple the damage if multiple charges hit. Testing was critical. He carefully tensioned each cable. Tested the trigger pull. Each Panzerfaust trigger moved smoothly when he pulled its cable. No binding, no sticking. The system worked. But he didn't test fire. Couldn't. These were the only 3 Panzerfausts he had. One shot had to count. August 14th, installation day. Kowalski needed help. The beam weighed 340 pounds, too heavy to move alone, too awkward. He asked for volunteers. Most of the platoon declined. Thought the whole project was crazy. But 2 privates stepped forward. Robert Chen and David Morrison. No relation to the men who died 2 days earlier. Just coincidence. Common names. They'd watched Kowalski work for 2 days. Wanted to see if the barn beam launcher actually worked. The 3 men carried the beam from Kowalski's foxhole to the target position. 380 yards. The beam had no handles. They carried it on their shoulders. Kowalski took the front. Chen and Morrison took the rear. 200 pounds per man in the center. 140 at each end. Manageable, barely. They moved slowly. Stopped every 50 yards, rested, shifted positions. Kowalski's shoulders screamed. The oak beam's edges cut into his trapezius muscles. His legs shook. They kept moving. Took 20 minutes to cover 380 yards. Finally reached the target position, 40 yards off the road. Thick brush, good concealment. They positioned the beam carefully. Kowalski used a compass to establish bearing. The crossroads was at 340 degrees magnetic. He aligned the beam, used ranging stakes to confirm aim. 3 stakes placed at 50-yard intervals toward the crossroads, sighted along them, adjusted the beam left 2 degrees. Rechecked. Perfect alignment. Elevation was critical. The Panzerfausts would arc slightly during flight. Kowalski calculated 2 degrees up angle. compensated for drop at 380 yards. He used rocks to shim the rear of the beam, raised it 4 inches, checked the angle with a makeshift plumb line. 2 degrees. Close enough. They camouflaged the weapon with cut branches and grass. Covered the beam completely. From 10 yards away, it looked like random farm debris. Fallen timber, natural vegetation. Germans wouldn't recognize it as a weapon, wouldn't see the Panzerfausts hidden underneath. Kowalski ran the firing cables back to a concealed position in the hedgerow. 25 feet of cable. He dug a shallow trench, buried the cables under 2 inches of dirt. No visible wires, nothing to catch German attention. The cables emerged in his fighting position. 3 cable ends, all within reach. He settled in to wait. Gripped the 3 cable ends in his left hand. His right hand held binoculars. He watched the crossroads, watched the tree line beyond, waited for the armored car to appear. The Germans always came. They'd come 3 times already. They'd come again, and when they came, Kowalski would pull 3 cords. 3 Panzerfausts would fire. And maybe, just maybe, Chen, Morrison, and Hayes would be avenged. Kowalski waited 16 hours. From 1400 hours, August 14th, until 0647, August 15th, through afternoon heat, through evening twilight, through darkness. He stayed in position, didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. His hands gripped 3 cable ends. His eyes watched the crossroads through binoculars. 380 yards away, empty. Other men from his platoon rotated through guard positions. They saw Kowalski crouched behind the hedgerow, saw him staring at the crossroads, saw him holding cables connected to nothing they could see. They thought combat stress had finally broken him. Left him alone, let him watch his empty crossroads. At 0647, the Sd.Kfz 234 appeared from the tree line northwest of the crossroads. Same tree line as before, same approach route. Predictable. The vehicle rolled forward at 30 kilometers per hour. Slow, cautious. The commander stood in the turret hatch. Oberfeldwebel Klaus Schmidt. Kowalski didn't know his name then. Learned it later from captured documents. Schmidt had been fighting since 1940. 4 years. Poland, France, Russia, now France again. Experienced, professional, careful. Schmidt scanned American positions through binoculars, looked for threats, looked for bazookas, saw nothing suspicious. The armored car continued toward the crossroads. The driver kept steady speed. The gunner traversed the 50mm cannon left, aimed toward known American defensive positions. Standard procedure. Establish firing position, acquire targets, engage. The armored car reached the crossroads, stopped. The driver set the brake. The vehicle sat motionless. Stable platform for accurate fire. Schmidt continued scanning with binoculars. The gunner fine-tuned his aim. They were professionals. Took their time, no rush. Americans couldn't respond fast enough to threaten them. They'd done this 4 times before at this exact location. Easy kills every time. Kowalski watched through his binoculars. The armored car sat 12 feet north of his pre-aimed point. Close enough. The entire vehicle sat within his calculated cone of fire. He lowered the binoculars, gripped the 3 cable ends tighter, pulled. All 3 cables yanked simultaneously. 25 feet away, hidden in brush, 3 Panzerfaust triggers released. 3 firing pins struck primers. 3 rocket motors ignited. The sound was a hollow whump. Deep, concussive. Nothing like a rifle shot. Nothing like artillery. Unique signature. 3 shaped charge warheads launched from the concealed barn beam. Flight time, 1.8 seconds. The warheads arced slightly, followed ballistic trajectories, converged on the crossroads. The first warhead hit the armored car's front right wheel assembly, impacted at the axle junction. The shaped charge detonated. Copper liner collapsed, formed a hypervelocity jet, penetrated the wheel housing, shredded the axle. The wheel assembly exploded. Fragments scattered. The second warhead hit the hull side, right side, midsection, 20 millimeters below the commander's hatch. The shaped charge penetrated 15 millimeters of armor plate, detonated inside the crew compartment. The explosion filled the interior, killed the gunner instantly, killed the radio operator, wounded the driver. The third warhead sailed high, missed the vehicle completely, impacted the road 30 feet beyond the crossroads, detonated harmlessly. But 2 hits were sufficient. Schmidt tried to drop into the turret. Too late. The internal explosion blew the commander's hatch off. The heavy steel hatch flew 30 feet straight up, tumbled, landed in a ditch. Schmidt's body fell back out of the turret, dead, killed by the blast wave. Secondary explosions followed. The armored car carried 48 50-millimeter rounds, high explosive and armor-piercing. This internal fire reached the ammunition storage. Rounds cooked off, exploded inside the vehicle. The hull split. Flames poured from every opening. Black smoke rose. The vehicle burned. Total elapsed time from Panzerfaust launch to complete destruction, 4 seconds. 0 German survivors, 0 American casualties. The barn beam launcher worked. Kowalski's platoon heard the explosion, felt the concussion, saw black smoke rising from the crossroads. Lieutenant Whitmore grabbed his rifle, ran toward Kowalski's position, expected a German attack, found Kowalski still crouched behind the hedgerow, still holding 3 cables, staring at the burning armored car. "What the hell did you do?" Whitmore asked. Kowalski didn't look away from the crossroads. "Killed an armored car, sir." Whitmore looked at the wreckage, looked at the cables in Kowalski's hands, followed the cables with his eyes, saw them disappear into the brush, walked forward, found the barn beam, found 3 expended Panzerfaust tubes. Understood. "You killed it with a barn beam?" "Yes, sir." "And 3 Panzerfausts?" "Yes, sir." "Mounted to the barn beam?" "Yes, sir." Whitmore stared at the weapon. Simple, crude, impossible to move once positioned. One-shot design, had to be reloaded and repositioned for second use. Completely impractical by any standard military engineering assessment. But it worked. The burning German armored car, 380 yards away, proved it worked. Word spread through the battalion by evening. Baker Company's sergeant killed an armored car with farm debris and captured German weapons. Most soldiers thought it was exaggeration. Combat stories always grew in the telling. But the Sd.Kfz 234 sat burning at the crossroads for 3 days. German recovery crews couldn't reach it. Under American observation. Under American fire. Physical proof that the barn beam launcher worked. Sergeant Robert Hayes, 2nd Battalion, different Hayes from the dead radio operator, visited Kowalski on August 17th, asked to see the weapon. Kowalski walked him to the brush pile, showed him the barn beam, showed him the expended Panzerfaust tubes, explained the design, explained the angles, explained the firing mechanism. Hayes studied the setup for 10 minutes, measured distances with his eyes, calculated trajectories in his head. He was 31 years old, Cleveland, machinist before the war, understood mechanical systems, understood the concept immediately. "Can you build another?" Hayes asked. Kowalski shrugged. "If you've got Panzerfausts and a beam?" Hayes had both. 4 Panzerfausts taken from a different German position and a 12-foot oak beam from a different destroyed farmhouse. He built his launcher on August 18th and 19th. Copied Kowalski's design exactly. Same bracket spacing, same angle calculations, same cable system. Positioned it covering a road junction 600 yards from his platoon position, road the Germans used regularly. August 21st. 7:23 hours. An Sd.Kfz 234 appeared at Hayes's road junction, stopped a fire. Hayes pulled his cables. 2 of 3 Panzerfausts hit. The armored car exploded. Burned. Second confirmed kill using a barn beam launcher. Sergeant Frank Murphy, 3rd Battalion, heard about both kills. Murphy was an engineer, 28 years old. Detroit, understood structural mechanics, visited Hayes on August 22nd, examined the launcher, saw the potential, saw the limitation. Oak beams are too light, Murphy said. They shift when the charges fire, throws off your aim. Worked anyway, Hayes replied. Barely. You got lucky with 2 hits out of 3. Murphy built his launcher using a steel I-beam salvaged from a destroyed bridge. 8 feet long, 6-inch flange. The steel was heavier, 410 pounds with 3 Panzerfausts mounted. Required 4 men to position, but the steel didn't shift when the charges fired. More stable platform, better accuracy. Murphy positioned his launcher covering a bridge approach. Germans used the bridge to move supplies at night. Armored car escorts. He waited 2 days. August 24th. 6:15 hours. An Sd.Kfz 234 approached the bridge. Slow, scanning for threats. Stopped 50 yards from the bridge. Murphy fired. All 3 Panzerfausts hit. Perfect spread pattern. The armored car exploded, rolled sideways, fell into the creek. 3rd confirmed kill. The pattern was emerging. Barn beam launchers worked. Simple design, easy construction, deadly effective. But weapons officers heard about them too. Captain James Richardson, Corps Ordnance, visited Kowalski on August 25th. Richardson was 42 years old. West Point. Career officer. By the book. He examined Kowalski's launcher, took measurements, made notes. His face showed disapproval. This violates about 15 weapons safety protocols, Richardson said. It kills armored cars, sir, Kowalski replied. It's unauthorized modification of captured enemy ordnance. Yes, sir. No testing, no approval. Technically illegal under current regulations. Yes, sir. Richardson closed his notebook. How many armored cars have you killed with this? 3 confirmed, sir. Mine, Hayes's, Murphy's. 3 armored cars. 0 American casualties during those engagements? 0, sir. Richardson was silent for 30 seconds. Then, I'm recommending you cease construction immediately. This needs proper engineering review, safety testing, official approval. Kowalski looked at him. Sir, how many armored cars did we kill last month using approved weapons? Richardson didn't answer. How many Americans died trying? Kowalski continued. Richardson still didn't answer. 3 armored cars dead. 0 Americans dead. That's exactly the point, sir. Richardson filed his report recommending disciplinary action. The report went to battalion, then brigade, then division, sat on desks while officers debated regulations versus results. While they debated, soldiers kept building launchers. On August 26, 1944, Hauptmann Werner Steiner, intelligence officer for the 116th Panzer Division, received casualty reports from 3 reconnaissance units. 3 Sd.Kfz 234 armored cars destroyed in 1 week. All destroyed at crossroads or road junctions. All destroyed while stationary. All destroyed by multiple simultaneous projectile impacts. The loss rate was unusual. Normal monthly armored car losses, 1 vehicle. August losses so far, 3 vehicles in 8 days. Steiner reviewed after-action reports from surviving crews. One report stood out. Driver from an armored car that escaped an attack on August 25th described seeing multiple projectiles fired simultaneously from concealed positions. Not a bazooka. Bazookas fired single rockets, not a Panzerschreck. Same limitation, something different. Steiner's conclusion: Americans had developed a multi-barrel anti-tank weapon. Probably crew-served. Probably position-based, not mobile. The Germans called it Mehrfachwerfer, multiple launcher. Steiner issued a tactical bulletin to all reconnaissance units. Avoid stopping at predictable locations. Avoid crossroads. Avoid intersections. Fire while moving or from unexpected positions. The bulletin reached some units quickly, reached others slowly, reached some not at all. August 27th, another Sd.Kfz, 234 destroyed. 4th kill. August 29th, 2 more destroyed on the same day, kills 5 and 6. German armored car commanders became cautious. Some refused to approach crossroads entirely. Reconnaissance effectiveness declined. American infantry positions received less harassment. Fewer surprise attacks, fewer casualties. Steiner requested intelligence assets to identify the new American weapon. Sent scouts to examine destroyed armored cars, found impact craters, found Panzerfaust fragments, but never found the launch platforms. Barn beams looked like farm debris. Steel I-beams looked like bridge wreckage. Germans searched for sophisticated multi-barrel systems, never recognized crude wooden beams as weapons. By September 1st, 1944, barn beam launchers had spread across 3 American divisions. 28th Infantry Division, 23 launchers built. 1st Infantry Division, 17 launchers. 4th Infantry Division, 31 launchers. Not official doctrine. Purely grassroots. Sergeants teaching sergeants. Shared knowledge through personal contact. Materials were simple. Barn beams, I-beams, telephone poles, anything rigid and heavy enough to serve as a stable platform. Captured Panzerfausts were plentiful. Germans retreated frequently, left equipment behind. Americans collected it, used it against them. Innovations emerged. Sergeant Thomas Bailey, 1st Infantry Division, added a 4th Panzerfaust to his launcher, wider spread pattern, better hit probability. Sergeant David Chen, 4th Infantry Division, developed a quick reload system, built 3 separate beams with Panzerfausts pre-mounted. After firing one, his crew would drag it away and position a fresh beam. Cut reload time from hours to minutes. Sergeant William Morrison, 28th Infantry Division, used multiple launchers covering the same kill zone. 3 beams positioned at different angles, all aimed at one intersection. Germans appeared. Morrison fired all 3 launchers simultaneously. 9 Panzerfausts. The armored car disintegrated. Overkill, perhaps. But Morrison had lost 6 men to armored cars in July. He wasn't taking chances. Statistics through September 15th told the story. 71 barn beam launchers deployed across 3rd Army. 34 confirmed armored car kills, 11 probable kills, vehicles destroyed but attribution unclear, 8 damaged armored cars that withdrew under fire, 0 American casualties during engagements. German armored car activity declined 67% in areas where launchers were deployed. Not because Americans destroyed all armored cars, because Germans avoided areas where launchers might be positioned. Deterrence through reputation. Word spread through German radio communications. American positions had new anti-armor weapons. Approach with caution. Better yet, don't approach at all. On September 18th, Major General Hobart Gay, 3rd Army Chief of Staff, received consolidated reports. 34 armored cars destroyed by improvised static launchers. Gay ordered formal investigation. Needed to understand what was happening at tactical level. Assigned Captain Richardson to evaluate. Richardson visited 6 launcher sites between September 20th and September 23rd. Interviewed Kowalski, Hayes, Murphy, Bailey, Chen, Morrison. Examined the weapons. Tested the designs. Compiled technical assessment. Richardson's technical findings. Weapons were dangerous to operators and nearby friendly forces. Panzerfausts weren't designed for fixed mounting. Blast back pressure could injure operators if cables were too short. No quality control. Each launcher built differently. Different materials, different dimensions, different angles. Accuracy was unpredictable. Some launchers hit consistently, others missed completely. The weapons violated 17 separate Army regulations regarding unauthorized weapons modifications. Richardson's tactical findings. Kill rate was 48%. 34 kills from 71 deployed launchers, compared to bazooka teams against armored cars, 12% kill rate. Barn beam launchers were 4 times more effective. 0 friendly casualties during 34 engagements. German behavioral change indicated significant psychological impact beyond simple kill numbers. Richardson's recommendation was reluctant. Professionally, he opposed the launchers. They violated every engineering standard. Dangerous, uncontrolled, illegal. But tactically, they worked. Killed Germans, saved Americans. He recommended field expedient status, not codified doctrine, not prohibited either. Allow continuation under local commander discretion. General George Patton read Richardson's report on September 25th. Read the technical objections, read the tactical results. Wrote 1 sentence in the margin. If it kills Germans and doesn't kill Americans, I don't give a damn what the manual says. Barn beam launchers continued unofficially through September, but their effectiveness was already declining. German armored car tactics had shifted completely. No more predictable crossroads stops. Fire on the move became standard procedure. Approach routes randomized daily. Reconnaissance patrols reduced. Too dangerous. October kill statistics, 8 armored cars, down from 34 in September. The problem was fundamental. Barn beam launchers required Germans to stop in predicted locations. Germans stopped being predictable. Some American units abandoned their launchers. Others repositioned frequently. Required enormous labor. 4 men to move each launcher. Hours to reposition and re-aim. November 1944. Launcher usage dropped 73%. Most units returned to conventional anti-armor tactics. Better American air superiority, more artillery support, improved coordination. The tactical situation had evolved. Barn beam launchers solved a specific problem at a specific time. That time was ending. The final recorded barn beam launcher kill occurred November 18th. Sergeant Murphy's steel I-beam launcher, same weapon he'd built in August. An Sd.Kfz. 234 approached a bridge, suffered mechanical failure, stopped unexpectedly. Murphy's launcher happened to be aimed at that exact spot. He fired. 2 hits. Armored car destroyed. Last barn beam engagement of the war. Total confirmed kills, 47. Probable kills, 16. Most successful period, September 1st through 30th, 1944. The tactic became obsolete as Germans adapted. But it worked when needed most, bridged the gap between problem identification and official solution. Staff Sergeant Frank Kowalski survived the war. Promoted to Technical Sergeant, December 1944. Never received a medal for the barn beam launcher. Unofficial weapons didn't generate commendations. Returned to Pittsburgh, 1946. Went back to construction demolition. Worked 32 years. Retired 1978. He rarely talked about the war. When asked, he'd say, "Built things, blew things up, same as Pittsburgh." His wife knew he'd served in France. His children knew he'd been a sergeant. None of them knew about barn beams and Panzerfausts. 1987. A military historian researching improvised weapons found references to Mehrfachwerfer in captured German documents. Traced the term to American barn beam launchers. Contacted Kowalski through veteran registries. Kowalski was 72 years old, still working part-time, still building things. The historian asked, "Why did you build it?" Kowalski's answer was simple. 3 of my men died in 43 seconds. I needed 43 seconds to hit back. Post-war statistical analysis showed a measurable impact. June through August 12, 1944. Third Army casualties from armored cars totaled 847. August 13th through September 30th. Casualties from armored cars totaled 192. 77% reduction. Multiple factors contributed. American air superiority, German retreat, better artillery coordination. But areas with barn beam launchers showed 84% casualty reduction. Areas without launchers showed 61% reduction. The difference suggested launcher impact. Conservative estimate, barn beam launchers saved 80 to 100 American lives. The tactic never became official doctrine, never standardized, never mass-produced. But the concept influenced post-war development. Claymore mines in the 1950s used the same principle. Pre-positioned, command detonated, static ambush. Modern anti-tank obstacles borrowed similar concepts. Frank Kowalski died in 2004, age 88. His obituary in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette mentioned World War II service, mentioned demolition work, mentioned his garage, didn't mention barn beam launchers, didn't mention 47 armored cars, didn't mention that for 6 weeks in France, a construction foreman from Pittsburgh changed how infantry fought armor with nothing but farm debris and captured German weapons. His tools were simple: 1 barn beam, 3 Panzerfausts, and the understanding that sometimes the best weapon is one the enemy doesn't recognize until it's too late. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Every like helps us share more forgotten stories from World War II. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing these histories from dusty archives every single week. Real people, real innovation, real sacrifice. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Texas, Germany, Australia, Japan. Our community spans the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Thank you for watching. Thank you for making sure Frank Kowalski and his barn beam launcher don't disappear into silence.